Other switchheads, and welcome to my review of Quintus and the Absent Truth. You see, I love horror games and I generally take my hat off to those that make me jump. In fact, it hasn't really happened for quite a while. Not since Rezi's first trip into VR anyway. That moment under the floorboards in total darkness, and then the lights come back on, and that scary lady is directly in front of you. I think I almost needed to change my underwear, let's put it that way. But will Quintus have the same effect on me and have me hiding behind the sofa? And just before we find out, why not subscribe to the channel for all my weekly updates, reviews and sales videos. And if you're enjoying yourself, give us a quick cheeky like. Sheets at the ready, engage.
Story.
Alan Shaw's daughter is missing, and it's up to, you, Alan, and also his small mouse Quintus, also you, to locate your daughter and find out the mysteries behind what's going on and her disappearance. The story pretty well does what it says on the tin, and it sets you up for the rest of the game, few scares, blah blah blah, and yeah, it's alright.
Controls.
Firstly, the controls do actually work quite well, and you can actually tell a difference between Alan and Quintus, which obviously is very important in a game like this. And welcome to the control section. So basically, Quintus, which is what you are, which is why you're so low down on the ground, is a little mousey. You can run, jump, you can kind of tell that. You can pick items up, you can, for some reason, sort of like lean to see around corners and stuff. Didn't really use that much. And that's about it really. You can duck down and crawl. You didn't use that much either. But yeah, it's quite good and enough to make it feel different to Alan, I guess, if you like. Alan is more, practically the same really. You got a crawl or duck type button. You move around. You can strafe and you can run. There's also an inventory, but I don't really use this much. I mean, literally hardly at all. And yeah, that's just basically the controls, and you move around in the environments, picking things up and doing stuff, puzzles and the like. You know what I mean. So as well as that, because the actual platforming part with the mouse is so tight, you won't be going around like tight ropes and all that lot really easily. I'm not quite sure, this may actually be deliberate to make sure that you're not rushing through it all. Although I will say that as Alan, his crosshair is not visible enough, and I kind of tended to lose it in places, and this really made it quite difficult to progress sometimes, as some of the little puzzles that he does really need you to pinpoint keys and things like that, and the crosshair kind of blends into whatever you're trying to do. I also had a problem with occasionally the two plus and minus button would stop working entirely, and I had to reset the game. And whereas this isn't really important that much, it stopped me from looking in my inventory, not that you used it that much, and also stopped me pausing the game or coming out of the game within the game, if that makes sense. And then there was the looking around, which was really annoying. Whilst you can move around quite easily and quite fast and quickly, the looking around was so slow you would not believe. Turning at times just felt sluggish.
Gameplay.
Firstly, I think originally this was released episodically, as it's got episodes, obviously, but also has recaps in them and to be continues, which felt a little bit odd continuing it straight away. Quintus seems to be a horror puzzle platformer, all set in first-person modes and split between Alan and his mouse, all quite literally to come together to beat the story. Alan's main objectives are to work out how to open doors, move objects, and solve a number of combinations to, again, open some other doors, or things to get things to open doors. This is done rather well and really does involve you making sure you're looking at everything and paying attention. You even enlist the help of your mouse, Quintus, that you carry around kind of weirdly with you and seem to be able to have this like bond and speech with. And speaking of Quintus, he also gets a good chunk of the limelight, but this time round you'll be using your furry friend to solve puzzles via some platforming and moving objects. There's also another part of Quintus gameplay that kind of involves travelling to other locations in a very different way. I'm not going to spoil much here, but to my mind it's done rather well, if not a little bit fiddly to pull some of the things off. While playing, Alan tended to speak to himself and Quintus. Whilst playing Quintus, a narrator narrated his parts, and this was both a surprise and kind of cool as well. As for the horror side of things, well, it did make me jump a couple of times and made the hairs on the back of my arms stand up a little bit. Although I have to admit it was more down to some clever tricks and sounds. The game does have character in this way, and for the price I was expecting a lot less, as it can be a little creepy here and there. Saying this though, I did have a few frame rate dips. Not too many, but they were there nonetheless. But all in all, it kind of ran quite well.
Visuals and sound.
So firstly, Quintus is voiced, and believe me, this was both a surprise and a relief. The voice acting was, well, to me, pretty decent, and I enjoyed the narration done while Quintus was doing his thing. It was a bit of a mouthful, sorry.
Once a hideaway for the artists and bands of Andromeda Records, Quintus had a feeling that this room wasn't such a pleasant place anymore.
I also found some of the creepy voice acting nailed the, well, creepiness it was going for. Quintus looked pretty good, if not a little odd at times, almost minimalistic, but on the odd occasion a bit too minimalistic. I did encounter frame rate issues, as I mentioned before, but for me, not so much it spoiled the experience. Although sometimes I did get it and I didn't know why, because what was on the screen wasn't normally a great deal.
The good.
It was voiced. Nice story, and it made the hairs on my arms stick up at times.
The bad.
Frame rate dips, looking around being so slow and slightly sluggish, little short, told in chapters and felt a little weird because of it.
The score.
Any game that makes me jump during playing has done something right in my mind. It is a little short, but I'm guessing that is kind of relevant to how fast you complete or solve each section. For me, I think it was about 2.5–3 hours, I think. And so I'll be giving Quintus the Absent Truth a pretty respectable 3 out of 5. And I think if you like this genre, then I think you would actually enjoy this one. Go ahead and subscribe before we get onto that alternative for all my latest videos on a weekly basis. And if you've enjoyed this video, please do consider giving it a like.
The alternative.
Eyes, the horror game. Yeah, I kind of enjoyed this. It's a long time ago since I played it. Another sort of like wandering around horror type game. But yeah, for the price that it was, and I think now, it's pretty decent. And so, think you got a better alternative? Then leave it below, along with any thoughts you may actually have on Quintus and the Absent Truth. And don't forget, you're more than welcome to come join the Switchheads community Discord if you fancy continuing the conversation. Many thanks for joining me, and see you next time, because life is better when we switch together.